penultimate round of classic stock catch here at Cadwell Park. A very wet Cadwell Park gets underway. Round 13 in the championship. Lots of wheel spin there. Andrew Lightstead is returning to the championship this weekend. He hasn't been about bit of contact with that Martin Kaiser just squeezing his way through. So head down to Coppets. It's the man he liked. Phil Fox trying the lead. Second is Martin Kaiser. Third, Matt Rosier. Lightstead coming in fourth. Except his first round since Mallory Park. It was the first meeting of the 2013 season. So they make their way through Charlie, Phil Fox. It's Lee Scott actually in that second. Yes, Kaiser a bit further back on the grid. So in second position for Lee Scott, the champion. He was crowned champion at Donington Park. Now, as you can see it from the onboard camera, it is soaking wet here at Cadwell. The penultimate round of the season. Rivers across the circuit in some places. The start line, one of them, and down the park straight is another, and it is really wet, very tricky conditions for the drivers to the final round of the year. Good grid though we've got. 19 cars, and they're all made to start. Good on all of them, because it is really not nice out there. And look at Matt Rosier at the 205. He's really putting the pressure onto Lee Scott. He's trying to become second to the championship this weekend. Is Matt Rosier. Lightstead very late on the brakes. Goes up on the inside of Rosier. That's because he's aquaplaning basically down the hill there. And it's very bumpy on the grass. He's almost, look, you can see how much up the hill at Matt's Hill Lightstead has travelled. He's lost a huge clump of places. Joy just behind Keith Morgan there in the Suzuki Swift. Lightstead to be pleased so he didn't hit anything there. Mansfield lots of runoff, even if you have got to travel up the hill. Imran Khan, he's another onboard camera. The ARL racing car. Look at the inside of Dan Gibson here. This is Imran Khan's first proper driving on a circuit in the wet. He had the damp earlier in the year at Brands Hatch, but nothing like these conditions. I think a lot of the drivers, nothing quite like these conditions. It is appalling out there. You can hardly see anything for the spray as they head down the start-finish straight and then down towards Coppets. He can't go into the left-hand side of the circuit, and that is because it is flooded on the right-hand side. It's flooded right across the track, really, but much worse on the right-hand side. Then he passes that big puddle. Khan can claw his way back to the right hand side of the circuit for the corner. Let's have a look at the order after the first lap then. Well, it was Andy Philpotts, who hasn't yet won a racing classic stock catch. He currently leads. Second, that is Lee Scott. Third, Matt Rosier. Fourth is Martin Kaiser. Fifth is Dan Gibson. Sixth, our onboard character, Imran Khan. This is the other river coming down the hill. The car complains again at the bottom of the hill there. Come back out of it again. And really just have to back off in those situations. It's, like I say, so wet out there. Gibson's managed to break away from Carl ever slightly. Let's carry on down the rundown. And 7th is Matt Stubbington. 8th is Derek Rosier. 9th Keith Morgan. And 10th is where Andrew Lightstead recovered. So you can see the ball of spray. The car's actually quite a way down the road from Carl. That is just how wet it is out there. Through Gooseneck, then just clipping the curb there. Now down the hill. It's so hard to actually tell what's going on. Dan Gibson's run out very wide. That might just be though the wet line he's taking on the outside of corners. Really quite incredible conditions here at Cadwell. And Matt Rosier must have got ahead of Lee Scott. No, that's Kaiser, isn't it? Matt Rosier's still behind Lee Scott. Scott perhaps holding these drivers up, heading down towards Hall Bend. Because it's under trees, Hall Bend's actually one of the drier parts of the circuit. Dry in massively, relatively speaking terms. It is still, I keep saying it, extremely wet out there. Khan's got Gibson back up and he's really putting him under pressure now. So head through the hairpin then down towards Barn Corner then for the second lap. Yes, only the second lap being completed here. Lap time's over 2 minutes they're going to be by the time they cross the line. So Andy Philpotts does 2 minutes 12 from Philpotts. He's Scott in second still. Andrew Lightstead then, he's still running in 10th, trying to close in that Swift of Keith Morgan after the first lap. He was 1.6 seconds behind. Similar difference actually after lap 2. To make the inroads in too much. A lot of people there just having to be so careful in these conditions. car tries to get away from the lights down over the top of the mountain, but still running on the tarmac, and that is going to be the aim for a lot of the drivers here today. And tomorrow hopefully be a bit drier conditions, and then drivers can really push. But today in these conditions it's just so hard to actually drive on the limit. The worst part is actually down the straights, coming down. So look at that, the car just trying to get out of the way. You can probably hear it on your pictures when the car aquaplanes. We don't have any sound here in the commentary box. You can probably hear the cars aquaplaning down the two straights. Imran Khan right behind Dan Gibson in that spray. Now he looks to the inside. Now is that him actually going for a pass, or is that him just to get out of that spray so we can see where the corner is? You can just see up the road Matt Rosa in the 205 has gone up to second. He's got ahead of Lee Scott now. Khan battling with Rosie for second in the championship. Rosie, Imran Khan sideways there on the Vauxhall bend. He gathered it all up, didn't lose any time. In what were much damper conditions, much drier conditions this morning in qualifying, but still very damp. Well, they're wet really, but compared to these conditions it was just damp. The car really sideways, a lot of them. Matt Rosier, one person in particular, really chucking it sideways at some point through all bends in qualifying. Rather dramatic stuff that was. And then Imran Khan doing it just there. And you see Gibson perhaps finding a path down the start-finish straight, which isn't quite so flooded, because it seemed to Khan was right on him through the wooded section. Gibson has just started to pull out a bit of a gap. Nothing too much so. Lap 4 we're on now then. It's still Phil Potts, now Rosa in second, and Scott, Kaiser, Gibson, Khan your top 6. Matt Stubbington is 7th, who's just had Derek Rosa, then 205 drivers. And then it's in 9th place still Keith Morgan ahead of Andrew Lights, had a big gap back then to Mervyn Beckett and Damien Cottrell, who complete the top 12. Down towards the gooseneck then for Imran Khan. Matt Rose is looking good now for second in the championship. Imran Khan really needed to beat him. We definitely needed to beat him in the 2 races here this weekend. Oh, Khan, is he aquaplaning down the hill there? Just like Andrew Lights sitting on the first lap. Look how bumpy it is. And if you see here how high they climb the hill there. Back on the road eventually comes Khan, so he can continue on his way. Just behind him is about 9th and 10th. Andrew Lightson is now on to terms with Keith Morgan. He's got to try and find a way past him. But it's certainly easier said than done today. Cadwell Park's not the easiest place to pass as it is. Very tight. Not that wide at all. And in these conditions, really just wanting to stay on the tarmac. Quite a few drivers already have had their offs. Our 2 onboard cameras of Lightstead and Khan, of course, being 2 of them. So, that 4 completed. Imran Khan down to 8th, from behind Derek Rosier and Matt Stubbington. Through Coppice corner then. So a really quick corner, Coppice. But the drive pretty much flat out. And of course, as soon as a bit of moisture comes onto the circuit, that is certainly not an option to take that flat out. So onto the Park straight. So Morgan's still staying ahead of Lightstead. Doing a good job, Keith Morgan, actually. This is one of his best races. There you just see the massive splash of water. It's almost going through a flood at the bottom of Park straight. Really quite incredible. The one that made Lightstead actually just back off a bit. Morgan perhaps just broke away ever so slightly there, going down the straight. And that's the Suzuki Swift. Back on board with Imran Khan then, so he heads through Hall Bends. Gets up back onto terms with Dan Gibson. This is pretty fantastic going from Khan, because he fell behind Gibson with that off, about 8 seconds. Gibson in turn's fallen behind Stubbington, and Khan's got himself ahead of Rosier. Derek Rosier, that is. So across the line they come to complete the 5th lap of the race. It's Philpotts at second is Rosier. Rosier has closed in on Philpotts. He's right behind him. Then a big gap back, 8 seconds back to Lee Scott in third. He's got a small gap to Martin Kaiser. Then there's about a 6-second gap back to Stubbington, who's right in front of Umbrella Karma. Imran Khan. Just behind him is you've got Matt Stubbington, who's 2 places in front of our onboard camera, because then it's Dan Gibson, who's just about a second half back, and then it's Khan, and then Derek Rosier, who I reckon has had an off because he's a bit of a gap behind Imran Khan now. Then Morgan and Lightstead continue to complete the top 10. So down the back straight, down the park straight, down into Quicker, and Kaiser's off, and Gibson sideways. You can see Kaiser in the tyre wall there, and Dan Gibson was extraordinarily sideways through Park Corner there, and now around the outside through Chris Curve. He's come in. Imran Khan, is Gibson going to fight back? You look in the rearview mirror, he is. He's on the inside line, he's come back through to the 59 car of Gibson, but he's carried too much speed into the gooseneck, he's lost it. The car's sideways, and he's going to plough towards a tyre wall, I reckon, there. So Khan's come back in front. Gibson has recovered in front of Mervyn Beckett in the Vauxhall Nova here, who we're on board with. Now, did he hit anything down Gibson? If he did, he was ploughing towards that tyre wall at quite some speed, so heading down towards the mountain, and Gibson's going straight on there. Gibson heading into the paddock. I reckon he must have hit the tyre wall up there in quite a heavy way, I'd imagine. It's the final lap of the race now at Cadwell Park, and these drivers will be very, very pleased to see the checkered flag. Matt Stubbington just in front of Imran Khan. He's run on for the second time at Mount. The back end comes around. Is he going to save it on the wet grass? It just keeps wanting to go and go. He has got back on the circuit. He hasn't actually lost a place that time, so Imran Khan stays in 5th position. But heading down towards the wooded section for the final time, it's Andy Philpotts who's going to take the race victory here. He's just in front of Matt Rosier. Rosier's put him under lots of pressure, but I think this is about the 6th year Andy Philpotts is racing classic stock cats, and he's going to take his first victory here today. He crosses the line to take the win in the XR2i just ahead of Matt Rosier, just 2400ths of a second between the two of them. 3rd position, well, that's going to go to Lee Scott, the 2013 champion. He's a good 10 seconds behind the 2 leaders though. Matt Stubbington is going to take a relatively easy 4th after getting past Imran Khan. Just to show how wet the conditions are today, the average race speed 60 miles per hour. Khan's going to take 5th. He's still clear of Derek Rosier, who's 6th. Keith Morgan's going to come home 7th. 8th is Andrew Lightstead. 9th Mervyn Beckett, and 10th Andrew 4th, because of course Kaiser and Gibson out of the race.